Hello and welcome everyone to PSGL PlayStation F4. We are here for round 4 around Zandvoort at the Netherlands for the Dutch Grand Prix here. If you're wondering who this voice belongs to, my name is Felix. I'm here for the first time this season as I sadly had to miss the first 3 rounds due to myself being on holiday. But luckily, I am joined by Jake, who was there for the first 2 rounds of the season. Hello.
Hello, yeah, and first of all, a huge thank you to Matt who covered for me last week when I was in huge discomfort thanks to some dental work. But it's good to be back, and a track which of course we saw in real life literally just a day ago, and yeah, should be another great round. It's been pretty close and unpredictable so far, so I'm expecting more of the same today.
Yeah, Zandvoort is a tricky track to overtake around, but still, it's a pretty interesting track as it's very narrow. I think you compare it more or less to Hungary, but it's got a lot more elevation changes, or at least they're a lot more extreme around this track, and you're always more or less on the edge around here, which is always good because it sees the drivers pushing all the way to the end or for almost every lap. And we've got some deadly curbs around here, so I think we're on for an absolute thriller here tonight.
Yeah, common theme on this new F1 game seems to be deadly curbs around most tracks, which has certainly added to. I think it's certainly had a lot more DNFs this season than what we had in the previous game. I expect that could continue here tonight, but yeah, things looking pretty close in the championship coming into this one. You got DV currently leading the championship in the Haas. He took the win last week at Spa, and then you've got last season's F4 champion TTG Nuth in second in the championship at the moment, and then the two AlphaTauris of Dawidek and Rudy, who have looked pretty quick so far this season, so I expect them to be right at the top of the constructors and maybe play a part in the championship battle as well.
Yeah, speaking of Rudy, he's going to be the first one to start his first flying lap as he comes around turn 1. And if I remember it correctly, that little left-hand king, is that turn 1B? Because on German TV they said it.
I had it down as turn 2, but I don't know. Maybe it is turn 1B. I've got no idea. All I know is I love the corner name for turn 1. Tarzan is an absolutely fantastic name for a corner. And it's where you tend to see most of the action yesterday as well.
Yeah, turn 1 is probably the best overtaking spot around this track, as the second DRS straight is not really long enough to overtake someone, apart from when they make a slight mistake. And due to the fact that I was not here, you need to update me on how the damage settings are looking. Like, is sideboard damage a thing, or bargeboard damage?
Yeah, we have got side pod and bargeboard damage. I'm pretty sure it's set to standard damage for both, both the damage and the damage rate. So yeah, you can get side pod and bargeboard damage, and you've seen it a few times so far. Drivers kind of calling it early sometimes in races just because their car's pretty much undrivable due to some earlier damage. So Rudy sets the opening lap time, but I suspect that would be beaten, especially as it was done on the mediums.
Yeah, first lap doesn't look too bad though, I think, as Philip goes a lot faster. By the way, this is the first time I've seen those graphics, and I gotta say, that looks great with the fastest lap now actually properly popping up on screen as Toxic Tomato pops it on provisional pole as Nuth beats it immediately in his McLaren.
Yeah, time's coming in thick and fast in this early stage, and it's Nuth that's set the benchmark. DV, our championship leader, yet to venture out onto the track. Dawidek currently going through the middle sector of the lap. I'll be interested to see where he pops it, because I suspect he'll be quite quick. Looking at sort of quick glance at what sort of times to expect here, I reckon we're probably going to see pole position maybe in the mid 1 minute 8 would be my guess. Someone said they've done an 8.7 in time trial, so would suggest that we're going to see some lap times in 1 minute 8. So and 1:9:01 for a benchmark, it's pretty good going really.
And Dawidek, is that how you pronounce his name?
Yep.
Dawidek pops it on provisional pole now with the 1.9 flat. So we're not far away from the 1.8, very, very close to it. And I can tell you already, I'm absolutely going to be confused with the team colors, because my goodness, we have a lot of blue on the left-hand side of the screen.
Yeah, it's been a commentator's nightmare from that perspective on this game. We constantly try to tell the difference. Particularly, I find, between the Alpine and the Williams, their shades of blue are so minimally different. It's very difficult to tell which one it is.
Yeah, I gotta say though, it looks a bit easier than in real life. In real life, it looks a lot more similar than it does on the F1 games. So I would really like it if they wouldn't have the colours next to the names, but just the team logo like it is in real life nowadays. That will make it a lot easier, but you know, it's Codemasters, and we all know the story of this game so far. It's not been the greatest start to an F1 game.
No, we can only hope for better as time goes on. One quick thing to mention ahead of this one, just depends. He hasn't scored any points yet this season, I don't believe. In fact, neither Alpine driver has. But coming into this race, Schender will have a 5-second time penalty to be added on to his race time following an incident with Toxic Tomato at the last race. So even before this race has started, Schender's kind of on the back foot already.
Ooh, and Enzo Ricciardo nearly loses it out of the last corner into the banking, and that could have ended horribly. We saw some drivers struggle in the banking part. I mean, I remember Sebastian Vettel spinning into turn 3 and was kind of saved by the banking, which slowed the car down a lot more than it would have without that banking. And I gotta say, it looked beautiful in real life, seeing those F1 cars around the banking, which obviously was the fastest line in real life. On the F1 game, not so much. You'd rather stick to the inside in turn 3, which is a bit sad in my opinion, but you know, you have to work with what you've given.
Yeah, I can't help feeling on this game that they've kind of underplayed the sort of the undulation of that corner a little bit, because in real life it looked absolutely insane, like how high on the banking they had to go. So maybe that's something on the next game we'll have a little bit more realism when it comes to this track, and perhaps then you will have to run right on the outside, which will make it look even better. Yeah,
well, obviously this season was the first time we actually went to Zandvoort, and the game was released right even before we went there in real life, as Enzo invalidated in the last corner, which is a bit annoying for him. Schender moves himself up into P4 at the current stage, and we've got yellows in sector 2, but that's probably just because some drivers are letting others through. We see Rudy letting other drivers through, and oh my goodness, that yellow flag thing on the top left was huge, as it was yellow flags everywhere. And we see Slimbo going off into turn 1. I think he actually was in the gravel, and he is in 8th gear, but now decides to shift down.
Yeah, there's no missing it when the yellow flag comes out in this game, and in the race that's quite a useful feature, so expect many yellow flags to come out. We've seen a lot of safety cars in recent times, so it'll be interesting to see how many we get tonight. This is one of those tracks where you can almost, some corners lend themselves to you sticking your nose up the inside when there isn't really space to do so, so hopefully the drivers have a little bit more caution than I've seen in some of the other lower tiers, I would say. DV is one driver I'm interested to see, current championship leader, only 11th for his first flying lap. I think he'll be hoping for a bit better than that.
Yeah, in the Haas, he's just started his flying lap, I think. But I can see that the Dutch Grand Prix is a track where many drivers are struggling because you really have to find a rhythm. But it looks like DV just did his flying lap previously because his ERS is not draining at all. So yeah, let's see what Shane does now. I think he's at the end of his lap now as he comes across the line and puts his car onto the second row of the grid for now, and into P3 he goes, and that is immediately P4 as I think Rudy, he just set a time good enough for second.
Yeah, and AlphaTauri 1-2 at the moment. I was watching Rudy, it looks like a pretty good lap, but yeah, to say that Alpine haven't scored any points so far this season, to see both cars in the top 6, it's a sign that hopefully won't last all season, because the guys have got some good pace. It just maybe hasn't worked out their way so far this season. This could be a chance for them to start turning things around. As much as I love that yellow flag graphic, it's a bit distracting in qualifying because it comes out every time someone slows down to let somebody through, which in qualifying is a lot, especially around a short track like this.
Ooh, Simbalix only just misses out on provisional pole. He had a purple middle sector, which unfortunately did not lead into P1, but for Toxic Tomato it did. And he goes onto provisional pole and breaks into the 1:08 minute mark by quite some margin. It's a low 1:08.9, and that's a pretty good lap time so far.
Yeah, this is superb. Really talks to Tomato on pole now. Davidek second, Simbalix and Ares on the second row of the grid, setting the identical lap time. So not much to split those two, with Simbalix just in front at the moment. Lap time's changing all the time, and really, you look down the field, 16th place Tiramisu is only 7/10 off pole position, so it's really close at the moment. I'm following latest right now because he looks like he's on a personal best lap time. See if he can improve on his current 10th place.
Yeah, I think what makes the last corner, I saw a couple of invalidations in the last corner. I think what makes it really difficult is that it's different from real life, because in real life you can't even stay on the entire curb and go off the track because the curb is not wide enough in real life. If you would go over the white lines with all four tyres, you would be in the gravel in real life. But on this game, the curb is wide enough for you to do so, and that really makes invalidating a lot more easy than in real life.
Yeah, the profiling of the curbs is a lot different on this game to what we saw when we actually went to the track in real life. So it's, I would say it's a little bit trickier on the game. In fact, the curb's a lot more slippy, and certainly in this corner, Davidek's just going through. You can't actually hug the curb as much as on the apex as some of the real life drivers did. Davidek is going into the pits. I was wondering if he was about to finish a lap, but not to be. Just seeing if there's anyone out on a lap at the moment. Maybe Martine is on a lap in the Williams.
I think Jabraka's just about to finish his lap. No, he's not. It's 1:23. So he was definitely not on a lap, but I think he just started one now. So I'm going to stick on board with him. Someone's coming out the pit lane, but it doesn't distract him all too much. Hugs the curb on the left-hand side, then goes a bit wide into turn 2 and then turn 3 as well. But now through that high-speed part, which I absolutely loved in real life, seeing the drivers fly around here, and into the long right-hander with that awful curve on the inside, which immediately sends you spinning. And then the very quick right-hander here, where he goes out too wide, clips the grass on the outside, and that is his lap basically over.
Yeah, it looks like there's a problem.
Oh, and DV.
Yeah, I was going to say one of the Haas cars looks like they've gone round as well.
Does not look like a good qualifying session for him so far. I mean, P17 is not something you want if you're at Zandvoort in qualifying. So it's not going to make the race any easier for him if he stays where he is at the moment. But you know, we saw Sergio Perez making quite a lot of overtakes, but you know, DV, championship leader and currently so far down the grid, penultimate row, and that's not looking all too good in quali for him.
No, he's not looking too confident out of it at the moment. I feel like this is one of those tracks where you definitely need to find a rhythm and a confidence, and right now, despite having the lead of the championship, you think his confidence would be high after winning last week. Right now, he's just looking like he's struggling that little bit, but he's got, I'd say, one more attempt to try and turn things around. And boy, he needs it, because like I say, if he's starting down 18th at a track that isn't that easiest to overtake on, he's going to be up against it from the word go. I'm watching Rudy on a lap at the moment. He was in 5th. Is he about to jump up at all? Yes, up to 3rd. So, wow, it's Honda-powered, dominated front of the grid at the moment, with Red Bull leading the 2 AlphaTauris.
Yeah, I'm watching DV right now as he flies into that fast right-hander. By the way, one thing we should not forget about is the rain, because obviously it's Zandvoort. It might still rain because, you know, it's not an area where it's known for its brilliant weather. So we'll have to wait and see for the race, but it's looking quite overcast right now, at least more than it did, as Nuth is the second driver to go into the 1/8, and he goes onto provisional pole 15 thousandths of a second quicker than Toxic Tomato.
Yeah, superb lap time. His teammate just improves to 8th as well, so good improvements for both McLarens at the moment. That's a super time from Nuve. I was watching his middle sector in particular. He found a lot of time, and that's enabled him to put it onto pole. Provisionally, Symbolix I was watching, but he's just about his lap time as DV does find a decent lap now. Our championship leader moves himself up to 7th, but it'd be a bit of a race against time. He's now got to go back to the pits and get back out there. It's going to be touch and go as to whether he gets another lap time in, I reckon.
The audio really distracted me right now. As Noah abandoned his lap. Sorry, I was just a bit confused because I thought someone DM'd me asking F5 streamed, and I was wondering if I'm sitting in the wrong commentary box, but no, it was just a reply to a tweet that was sent out. But yeah, we've not got that much time left, but obviously the track is very short, so you're gonna get around really, really quick. And it's a very different track because obviously Austria isn't that long of a track either. But I feel like in Austria it's more stretched out. But I feel like Zandvoort is like the tracks. Every single corner seems so close to the other in terms of spacing. So yeah, I would really like to know the distance in between the two corners that are furthest away from each other, as Nuth retired because he thinks he won't be able to set another lap, and Toxic Tomato is starting his lap, so this is his final chance now to snatch pole position away from the McLaren driver.
Yeah, both McLarens have decided that's it for their session, so they won't be going any quicker than what they've already done. 1 minute and 40 seconds left, and yeah, I don't think DV's going to get out again, so P7 at best for our championship leader, but plenty of drivers out there who could knock him down a few positions. He'd probably want, if anything, he'd probably prefer to start 11-4-12 at 9-4-10th, you could argue.
Definitely. I mean, fresh tyres is always a good opportunity for you as Toxic Tomato spins coming out of turn 8, and that is his qualifying over and his chances of pole position gone. He just went out onto the curbing a bit too much, and that was enough to set the car around spinning. And very unfortunate, that was his big chance to snatch pole position away. But he might have enough fuel to do another lap, but who knows.
Yeah, and Martin there has improved. He's gone up to P7, so not DV down 1 spot. DV is out there trying to get another lap time in, but he's going to very much be in a race against checkered flag, you would think. Just looking to see who is on a lap at the moment, who could potentially take pole position away. Rudy in the AlphaTauri.
Yeah, Rudy just 1,000 behind his previous best time in Sector 1. And as he comes towards turn 11 now, the little almost like stadium section, which was absolutely amazing to see in real life with all the Dutch fans, he sets a purple middle sector. Could he actually snatch pole position away as he comes around the final turn to then just have the flat out section through this banking? Enzo might help him with the slipstream, not really, but he comes across the line. Can he snatch pole position away? No, he can't. He goes into the 1/8, but only 42 thousandths of a second away from Nuth. That was absolutely close, and who knows, if he would have got that slipstream from Enzo, he might have got pole position. But look at that, the top 3 only separated by less than half a tenth.
I really only think there's DV out there who could improve. He did reach the checkered flag in time. It was a race against time, but he made it. Ares didn't improve, just saw Noah go for a spin. Massive moment for DV though if he's pushing, but that might have cost him a temp or two there.
Yeah, I don't know. I think he abandoned it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's it for him. P8 then it is. Not a great starting position to be in, but at least he's inside the top 10. Not completely away from some good points, but obviously he needs to climb up a couple more positions if he doesn't want to lose too much ground. And you can actually see it's raining now, right at the end of quali. So maybe that's why so many people retired with a couple of minutes to go, because they thought the rain might be affecting their lap times.
Yeah, and it does explain somewhat. I was wondering, we only really saw Rudy improve there at the end. It was kind of, everyone else was either down their lap time, I saw a few spins, so yeah, maybe the track conditions just played havoc on those last few minutes and people were unable to improve, but I don't think TTG knew full mind, currently second place in the championship, and he's sealed pole position for this one, with Toxic Tomato joining him on the front row, and I mentioned those Alpha Tauris, they're right there on the second row, and the pair of them are very quick, so I suspect they'll be battling at the sharp end potentially all race.
So that is your starting grid for the race, which is about to start in a couple of minutes' time. Noob takes pole position, only 15 thousandths of a second ahead of Toxic Tomato and 42 thousandths of a second ahead of Rudy. Davidek takes P4 in the AlphaTauri, makes it a double AlphaTauri row for the second row. We've got Symbolics in the Williams in P5, Aras in P6, Martin, P7, DV, only P8 for him, Shane in P9, and Trinity in rounds of the top 10. All the other drivers behind him are going to have a free choice of tyres.
Yeah, assuming, of course, that we haven't got rain for the race, which, of course, we saw at the end of qualifying, so it looks like there's potentially going to be some havoc with the weather. We didn't see May drivers going for the mediums, really, other than at the first few minutes of qualifying, so let's see, what does the weather hold for us in the race? Ooh. And yep, no free choice of tyre anymore. I don't think we're going to be seeing anyone out on slicks at the start of this one. And wow, that really does throw a spanner in the works.
Oh, that could make a lot more excitement than we thought it would. Because obviously, most drivers probably expected it to be dry. But like I said, the Dutch weather or the Netherlands are not known for the best weather in the world, and it's raining, so the grandstands are getting their umbrellas out and the drivers can't. They're sitting in the cockpit and they'll have to adapt to the conditions as best as possible. Luckily on this game we won't have a red flag, then 2 laps behind the safety car and then a race finish. We're going to have a full race and hopefully not a safety car start, but it's not a thing on this game, so I'm very glad about that.
Yeah, some of the drivers might not be so glad depending how turns 1 and 2 fare, and to be honest with you could even include turns 3 and 4 in that as well, just because of the nature of the start of this lap means you're probably going to see cars going side by side pretty much until you get to around turn 6 or 7, just because of the nature of the corners. But here we go then, we've got everyone starting on the intermediate tyre, no surprise there. Doesn't look like there's enough standing water for full wets, but definitely doesn't look like you want to be out there on slicks. So new at the front, and of course the drivers who were quick in qualifying, it'll be interesting. I guess we're going to find out what setup they were running, because maybe there's some guys outside the top 10 who were thinking more of a race and did lean more towards a wet setup than some of the guys at the front.
Yeah, it's going to make the curbs it's not going to make the curbs any nicer to your car as well, as they are wet now, and you know, you don't want to touch too many curbs on this track in the dry, and now as it's wet you'd rather touch none of the curbs most likely, if you don't want to have your car spinning into the gravel trap, which I absolutely love about this track, that you don't have all these runoff areas. You just have grass, gravel and the wall, so every single mistake gets properly punished and not gain you time. So I think we're going to see quite a lot of mistakes, and it's not going to be easy going around a bank corner in the wet.
No, definitely not. You're probably going to see a few drivers feathering the throttle slightly, just trying to make sure they get through there in one piece. And of course, the one thing that we won't have in these conditions is the DRS. Of course, we don't know what the rain's going to do later on. Will it dry out? Will it get even damper? I guess only time will tell on that one. Maybe the drivers obviously have more information than we do. But all the drivers now lining up on the grid, and they're facing 36 laps around a very tricky and slippery Zandvoort.
Yeah, it was just the tyre strategy popped up with a possible 1 or 2 stop, and it's that the 1 stop was going to be quicker, but we'll see about that as all the drivers have set up on the grid. It looks like the Red Bull of Toxic Tomato is actually slightly facing the McLaren of Nuth, but the lights are coming on now for the Dutch Grand Prix here in F4. And we are underway. It looks like a solid start from Nuth in first place, but it looks to be a brilliant start from the AlphaTauri in fourth, who tries to attack Toxic Tomato coming into turn one. It's going to be a lot tighter than it should be in the dry, and we've got a Mercedes off in the background. Then we've got Nuth leading the way, and Rudy takes second place away from Toxic Tomato. Coming into turn three now with a slight bit of contact, and then it's a lot of kerfuffling in the background. Many cars going side by side, and now Toxic Tomato has to defend himself from the other AlphaTauri of Davidek, and they're going almost three wide. Oh, Toxic Tomato struggling everywhere, but he's managing to hold on to the podium position for now. We've got Shane trying to dive it down the inside. Yellow flags in sector 2, and Shane has to back out from the move on Ares as well, but it looks like Nuth has got quite a good gap so far already.
Yeah, absolutely nailed the start to Nuth while everything was happening behind. You can see their battle between Ares and Shane as they go up towards what would be the second DRS straight, but of course no more. Ares going right round the outside with a better traction to make that work. But some drivers having issues further down. It looks like Tiramisu and Jabraka came together and they're struggling away at the back. I don't know if they've got any damage. Not particularly great start for DV as well, and he's having to fend off the other McLaren of Philip.
Yeah, it looks like some drivers have spun in the background. We've got the Mercedes fighting as well. Then let's see if Symbatics is close enough to make a move. No, he's not, but look at that. Shane is trying to get past Ares, and Davidek is trying to get past Toxic Tomato, but it looks like Ares outbraked himself and then more or less dragged Shane with him into the gravel trap, and both cars have lost a lot of places, and Shane has lost even more than Ares, and that was horrible from the Alfa Romeo, and it's going to be close with Noah and Shane, since Noah's spinning around, and Noah is off and dropping down the field. And that is a horrible place to spin, and luckily we've got ghosting on, and that is him dropping down the order.
Yeah, it was going to be so difficult for the pair of them to go side by side through theirs. We've got Philip now and Martin battling away through, looks like turns 7 and 8, and no traction at all for Philip, and that allows Martin to keep the place. As we've got Simblix and Ares, I think they're still doing battle, but it looks like Simblix has got that position. And yeah, just there was no space for two cars. That was quite simple, and it was going to be so inevitable that there was going to be some form of contact. And sadly for Noah, he came off second best.
Shenda made a mistake and is dropping down even more and more now. DV has had a horrendous start as well. He's dropped down to P11. He just gained a spot from Shenda's mistake now. We've got the fastest lap set by Nuth, who's leading the way and has already formed himself a 1.4 second gap. But let's look at Shenda. Can he fight back against Koala? Down the inside into turn 1. It's going to be close with the Aston Martin, but he makes the move stick, and he gives the other Aston Martin of Slimbo a chance to slip through as well, and Koala loses 2 places within 1 corner.
Yeah, double disaster there for the Ferrari driver, dropping those 2 positions, and now very much potential defensive again against the Mercedes of KJXLL is about the closest you're going to get.
Look at Slimbo. Slimbo tries to go around the outside of turn 7. Can he make that stick? No, he can't. That was a great attempt around the outside. Fair racing between the two of them, and Shenda left enough room on the outside, but yeah, Slimbo around the outside in turn 7, that's not going to work surely, and especially in the rain. No way that is working. Koala has to defend himself once again. He seems to be struggling in those wet conditions right now. But Slimbo is right on the rear diffuser of Shenda, who's slightly struggling as Kill, is that his name? I don't know, but he definitely went wide and off the track and lost not 1, not 2, but 3 positions within 1 corner.
Yeah, tried to take 1 position and just ran out of space, unfortunately. And yeah, drops down to 18th. Not a good start for either Mercedes. You do wonder if the 2 Alpine cars share setups, because they looked really good in qualifying, but it looks like the pair of them are just struggling a touch more in the race conditions. Maybe the wet weather just not to their liking, but got to say at the moment, the 2 drivers, Nuth and Rudy, are just pulling well clear. Doesn't look like Toxic Tomato's got much of an answer for the pace of the guys in front of him.
Yeah, it looks like Philip has gone past Shane now. I wonder what happened there. No, Shane got his place back, it looks like. And we've got yellows. That is the Alfa Romeo of Tiramisu. DV's dropping down. I think he made a big mistake. Yes, a lot of his front wing is missing. The entirety of his front right end plate is gone, and that has to be an unscheduled pit stop at the end of this lap now. That is very unfortunate for the championship leader. It looks like a nightmare of a weekend.
Yeah, not what he needed at all. It doesn't look like he's going to struggle to score points from here. He's going to have to rely on some safety car and other things to happen now. Things have just not worked out for him. And in the wet conditions, he's looked even less comfortable than what he did before. And the worst part for him, of course, is that the guy close to him in the championship, Nuve, is currently stretching his lead out front.
Sorry to interrupt you, but Trinity is trying to set up a move on Philip, who went very, very wide in the last corner, and he's got the inside line now. Trinity down the inside into turn 1, and it looks like he's got the move stick, and Philip cannot do a lot about that, and he's dropped down to 10th, still inside the points, but now he's got a feisty looking Enzo right behind him. So I think the Aston Martin will try to get past as well within the next couple of laps, but Philip down to 10th.
Oh, Enzo's gone!
Oh,
Enzo
never mind.
made contact with the barrier. Very unusual place. Was on just one the exit, one of the corners, and he must have damage on that Aston Martin.
Yeah,
he does, and he's going to have to pit as well. Damage on that front right end plate, and yeah, he's going to have to crawl back to the pits, and doesn't look good for his race. And congratulations, Felix. That's your first commentary curse of the season.
Of the game, even. So, yeah. Sorry, Enzo. That was my fault. I'll take full responsibility. I'll just... but I'm a commentator. What am I supposed to do? I need to talk about some drivers and what's going on. So it had to happen at some point, as Arras slightly lost the rear end coming out of the last corner, but managed to keep it on the track. Same with Martin right behind him, and that was not Martin, sorry, Shane, and that looked a bit more dangerous and a bit more scary than it did for Arras. And it looks like, Shane is really struggling with his car right now. He's losing the back end everywhere. Might he have some rear wing damage?
It's very possible. Obviously, it's not something we can, unfortunately, we don't have any evidence of it, unfortunately. We don't get told about any sort of damage other than obviously the front wing damage that we can see, but it's very possible there's something quite unstable at the rear of his car, and you can see he's having to fight the car through the lap, and that's the last thing you want in these conditions.
Well, the rear wing looks fine on the Alpine, as I'm on board with him and looking back, and it gives you a nice view of the rear wing, but it looks fine to me. But maybe it's just a thing with the setup then. And with the rear wing, usually you wouldn't have it that extreme on the exit. I think you'd rather have it in the actual corner as you're turning in, or at least in fast corners. But he seems to be struggling on traction, so it might be a setup thing.
Yeah, potentially very much could be. Nuve extends his lead now to over 2 seconds at the front, as Fixbarth expecting a fastest lap there. But actually, no, Rudy is got the fastest lap on this occasion, and Simbalix going even quicker behind. So maybe just some of the guys coming back into this now, and Simbalix is starting to make some impression on Davidek, who I've got to be honest has kind of drifted away from Toxic Tomato. I kind of thought it was a matter of time before he got past the Red Bull, but now Toxic Tomato's not under any real sort of pressure at all.
Yeah, a guy who is under pressure is Shane right now, as Trinity was pretty close on the main straight. Obviously, when you're losing that much time and grip on the exits of corners, it's not going to give you the nicest of times on the long main straight. As DV sets the fastest lap, that's a sign of him actually having some kind of pace, obviously on fresh inters, but he's very far down the order, and it's going to take some time for him to come back, and he might need a safety car or a strategic masterclass, but I don't think he can fight his way back into the points without any sort of help.
No, it's going to be tough. Obviously, we don't know what the weather conditions are going to do as the race develops, but I don't really know, to be honest with you, the life of these intermediates as well. That could also be a factor if it is a full intermediate race, of course. Potentially, if he can get those intermediates to the end and everyone else has to stop, he may come back into play. But we just got to see how the weather unfolds, and you're absolutely spot on about Shane. If anyone I think is going to be past him the next sort of lap or two, it does look to be Shane. He just cannot get the power down out the corners, and that's leaving him super vulnerable to Trinity behind, and maybe even Philip as well.
Yeah, I'm actually quite keen to see if it's going to dry up at some point. Maybe that would explain Shane not having the best setup suited for these conditions, maybe. As he maybe thinks the majority of the race is going to be dry, but for the first 8 laps, it doesn't look like it's going to be drying up anytime soon as DV sets another fastest lap of the race. But who knows, maybe it dries up and he thought he'd rather have a dry setup and then be quick for the majority of the race rather than being quick in the first couple of laps and then, you know, being a sitting duck in the dry conditions. But it's not looking like it's drying up right now, and Trinity is getting closer and closer to the rear end of that Alpine.
Yeah, Trinity just looks like he's got so much more confidence and belief in his car in these conditions right now, but of course without the DRS he's going to have to rely on some sort of a bad exit for Shane to really get close enough to mount an attack. Maybe tactically use his ERS as well. I mean, it's worth noting, to be fair, looking at the ERS, that Trinity's nearly got a full bar, whereas Shane's used quite a little bit of his. So Trinity's using a lot of his down the straight, but he's not close enough to make a move into Tarzan, so Shane keeps the place for now. And yeah, Trinity and Philip just sort of sat there. You almost felt they can go quicker than Shane, but trying to find a way through is another issue altogether.
Yeah, passing and being quicker is a whole different thing, but that might be the chance now as Trinity deploys every single bit of its ERS, but Shane really does a good job of making the car as wide as possible, and especially through that very quick part of the track. There's not really a way past if you can place your car correctly, and that was pretty good from Shane, but that was Trinity's best chance so far after Shane's mistake. Shane really needs to work on these exits if he wants to keep that spot for the future.
Yeah, if it is going to dry up late, you almost wonder if this is just Shane's thinking for Shane here is just get it through this part of the race, and then it'll maybe come to him later on, but it looks so uncomfortable right now. It's just where Trinity can find a move. If Shane has a bad exit here, this would present an opportunity to the Red Bull. Let's see what his exit's like. And his exit to this part of the track is actually really good, which is a problem because it really would be the one opportunity that Trinity would have. But Shane's getting a great slingshot through the bank curve, and that's just not providing any opportunity.
Yep,
and Noah has gone round just as he starts the bank curve by the looks of it, and he's got damage on the front right end plate, so he's going to have to pit. The only good thing, I suppose, if you do bin it there, is that you haven't got long to go to get to the pits, but still not what Noah would want, and it puts him at a severe disadvantage now. He's going to be at the tail end of the field by the looks of it.
Davide, I realised just a couple of seconds ago he was inside that 1 second window of Toxic Tomato ahead of him, but he's gone out of it once again now, and Simbalix has gone into the 1 second window of Davide. So I wonder if he maybe made a slight mistake or something, because Simbalix is getting a lot closer than he did before, and he might be able to make a move at some point, but in the rain without the help of DRS around this track, you really need a mistake from the car ahead to actually have a chance of doing anything.
Gotta say that Noof is really showing why he was a season 28 F4 champion. Oh, Shane and Martin both go a little bit wide there. Could this be an opportunity potentially for Trinity? Is he going to sense that and deploy his ERS? He's deploying his ERS, but he just can't get close enough. I wonder if at Alpine, due to the fact he might be running a slightly more dry setup, it looks to have really good straight line speed, and that's minimising the opportunities for Trinity. But having said that, Shane's rear end is constantly trying to overtake the front end.
Well, maybe if you're in a good starting position, that's the way to go, because where do you want to overtake around this track apart from turn 1? There's no real opportunity if you don't make a mistake, and if you are quick enough on the straights, it basically makes it impossible for others to overtake you if it's raining and you don't have the help of DRS. So maybe that's the way to go in these conditions, and maybe Shane has got a very smart way of keeping his position, but obviously it's going to make fighting even more difficult. And we've got a safety car.
Yep, and it's because Noah has had a spin. Actually, it looks like he's just coming onto the pit straight. Once again, he's back into the pits, and, well, is he going to call it a day, or is he just going to put another set of intermediates? I suppose, but the fact there's a safety car is worth just carrying on in the race, because he actually,
well, if he's on the same lap, which is going to be close with the McLaren, because he might get lapped, and as soon as he gets lapped, then he can forget about that. But Nuth dives into the pit lane, and so does everyone else, it looks like. Oh, what will the AlphaTauris do? Oh, Davide pits as well. He's going to drop back. I tell you what, he's definitely going to drop back.
I tell you what, I'm just wondering here, is he holding up another car? It doesn't look like he actually might got away with it. Toxic Tomato has overtaken Rudy through the pit stop, so a double blow there for AlphaTauri. Davide gets holed up, and Rudy loses a place to Toxic Tomato. So Tomato up to second, Rudy up to third, and Davide all the way down now in seventh. That has cost him dear.
Yeah, well, the only other opportunity he had was to stay out, but then he immediately would have caught up to the safety car, and I think he would have lost a lot more positions than that, and probably would have even dropped outside the top 10. So it was probably damage limitation what he did there with his pit stop, but obviously it kind of ruins the day for Nuth now, as he has to make all the work he did on that first stint ever since the start of the race all again. He built up his gap, he controlled the race so far, but now obviously it's a danger point. If you don't get the restart right, you have a Red Bull right behind you who is willing to win his first race of the season.
Yeah, he'll be really frustrated, dude, because he built up a 4-second lead. He was looking really comfortable out front, and now he's literally just got to do all that work again, as you say. So, and he's, of course, now it's a different person behind him as well. So it'll be interesting to see what Toxic Tomato can do now that he's not got Rudy in front of him. The real benefiter, I've got to say, from all those pit stops was Shane. He's actually got past not just Dawidek, but he's also got past Martin as well. So he might be struggling with his car a little bit, but he's now finds himself up in 6th place, and you get the feeling that could be the driver to look out for on a restart, because based on what we've seen before, I suspect Dawidek's going to be quicker than Shane, and he'll want to try and get past.
Yeah, and remember though that Shane had some good straight line speed and a good exit out of the last corner, so it's not going to be an easy time passing him. So yeah, maybe it was an absolute masterclass going with a bit lower downforce than all the others for this rainy race, but who knows. But for me it looked like he had a bit less downforce than at least Trinity, who was behind him.
Yeah, for sure. I'm interested to see what sort of straight line speed Dawidek's got in comparison. So yeah, Nuth now, all the pressure on him. He's not got that buffer anymore, and he's got a Red Bull behind him who will want to try and make an impression on this restart. Are we going to see the safety car come in this lap? It's questionable, because we have still got about 4 drivers that still need to catch up to the safety car. Will they get there in time for this lap? We'll have to wait and see. But it's good news for Noah. All those pit stops of those guys behind him ensured that he wasn't lapped, so it has actually put him back in the race.
Yeah, well, he deployed the safety car himself, basically, by spinning out of the backed corner and crashing into the wall. Not completely terminally damaging his car, but, you know, having debris all over the track, and then it deployed the safety car, so he's basically back in the race. But I don't think that was on purpose, because it's a risk. And what happened to Schender?
Oh, what on earth's happening here? We got about 2 drivers on the grass under the safety car. It looks like there was some sort of confusion going on there. And then you've got both Mercedes as driving, well, partly inside each other. I think we've got a lagging Mercedes, which is probably not helping things. And we've got Latest now, has got a 5-second penalty for a collision with Slimbo. It looks like drivers are just completely out of position. Phillips letting drivers through. It looks like several drivers are just trying to give positions back. I don't know if the game's telling them, but they have to give positions back. But this is all becoming a bit messy here, and we're seeing some penalties being handed out. And I guess the best thing to do for these guys is probably just to pit, as Slimbo and Koala are doing, and serve the penalties now.
Yeah, Slimbo just picked up another 5-second penalty for the speeding in the pit lane. It might be down to the game, because we all know how, you know, I'd say interesting this start to the game was, in terms of glitches and safety car rules and everything. So yeah, it might have to do with that.
Yeah, just a side note to anyone who watched F13, which I commentated on Thursday, the driver that crossed the line and won the race was then given a 20-second penalty on the cooldown lap for ignoring a yellow flag. So, you know, read into that what you will. The game certainly isn't glitch-free at the moment. and hopefully it hasn't impacted. Obviously, Latus is the one who's heavily impacted because he hasn't served his penalty, and he's still out there at the moment in 11th. DV up to 14th, and we saw what his pace was like. Admittedly, he did have fresher inters than some of those around him, but nevertheless, his pace is pretty good, so he could be one to look out for on the restart, but he's got a lot of work to do from 14th, with his current main title rival still out at the front, and we should be seeing the safety car in this lap. Oh, and we got a spinner. Schender has had a half spin under the safety car, and made slight contact with one of the Mercedes drivers. Oh, and now he's collided with the other Mercedes as well. This is all getting super messy. And yeah, 5-second penalty. I'm not surprised to see that pop up, but Schender's made a bit of a mess of that safety car restart, and that's potentially put him out of contention for points, particularly if he has some damage.
Yeah, let's try and get away from all those penalties and focus on the actual safety car restart with Nuth controlling the pace right now.
Yeah, Nuth controlling things, ready to go. Is he just wants to try and catch him out if he can? He has done. In fact, he's caught Toxic Tomato out tremendously, and Toxic Tomato's into the wall, contact with Rudy. A really messy restart, and this could see 3 wide into Tarzan. Shane is going to go down the inside. Is Shane about to take 3rd place? Yes, he is. I don't believe it. That's an astonishing move up the inside of Tarzan, and now Shane wants to go for P2. Is there going to be a gap there for him? Doesn't look like it. He may have to concede that one, and now Simbalic's going off the track as well. This is a scruffy restart to the race. And Simbalic's going off the track.
Oh, that's a big crash. Arias is out of this race. He was caught up. He was basically an innocent bystander in that situation, and he got caught up with Martin, who has sent him spinning into the wall and out of this race. And all of that has started basically with Shane overtaking Toxic Tomato before the start-finish line, and the big winner of this situation is Nuth and Shane. Nuth building up his lead once again within 1 lap, and then Shane obviously moving up into P3. But I was on board with Toxic Tomato, and he was overtaken by Rudy before the start-finish line, so that should be a penalty after the race, and that sent Toxic Tomato then spinning into him and losing traction, and then that caused a lot of chaos. But there goes Shane down the inside into turn 1. Tarzan is the best possible place to overtake, but he can't make it stick just yet.
Yeah, such a scruffy restart, and I've got to be honest, for that Ares Slimbo collision, I'm mightily shocked we don't even have a virtual safety car for that, because that was far bigger than the collision that brought out the safety car initially. So a bit of a surprise there, but nevertheless, we are back under green flag conditions, and contrary to what I thought, Shane is the one who's been on the offensive, and is not too far away from looking at P2 here. Nuth once again, though, a shot off into the distance, and I think that was due to how good his restart was. It caught Toxic Tomato, kind of caught him unawares, and then that's really chaos ensued from there, really.
Yeah, it might be a bit of side pod or barge board damage for Rudy now as Toxic Tomato. Oh, and Davidek is out. He spun out of turn 10, I think it was, and we've got another safety car.
Yeah, with the way that car's positioned, that's slightly less surprising. And Davidek out of the race, having such a good season, and Rudy had built up sort of a 3-4 second gap again, and once again it's been wiped out. He'll be wondering what he has to do just to try and get away from everybody here, but our 3rd retirement of proceedings. It was quite a clean race, really, up until about 4 laps ago, particularly as it was in the rain, of course. But it's ever since that safety car's come in, it's just kind of unfolded from there, and yeah, huge surprise to see Davidek out, and from what I've seen so far, maybe that's perhaps a weakness he can work on, because in dry conditions he looks like potentially the man to beat, but when we've had changeable conditions he doesn't seem to have quite the same pace.
I think Lattis, by the way, stayed out because he's hoping to get his 5-second penalty removed, because obviously if it doesn't pit and doesn't serve it, it can be removed and he can keep his spot that he originally crossed the line with. I don't know where he exactly got the penalty, but if it was a typical Cody's penalty, then it could be removed, and that could have been a smart thing to do for him. But yeah, Rudy, like I said, I think he might have barge pod or side pod damage. As like I said, he overtook Toxic Tomato before the start finish line, and then Toxic Tomato spun into him and into his side pod with quite a lot of speed. So I wouldn't be surprised if there was some kind of damage for the AlphaTauri.
No, good point, and yeah, and that could explain some reasons as to why he was under pressure from Shane and why Noob was able to pull away from him so easily. Potentially has suffered a bit, obviously not as much as Toxic Tomato has, down in 15th, and also you wonder if he'll have some side pod damage as well from that one. Yeah, for latest, it was such a difficult one to call. You had about 5 or 6 drivers slowing down and trying to let each other through. Clearly something the game was telling them to do, and I think that's roughly when he picked up his penalty, so that could actually be one that does end up being removed. So for latest, it might be worth just staying out there. And right now, from really nowhere, I've got to say, because it looked like they were struggling earlier on, but both Mercs in the top 7 at the moment, and not looking too bad. DV finds himself up to 9th as well, which he'll be quite happy with considering what happened earlier. But I've got to be honest, right now, I know the safety car's bunched everything up again, but Noof's looking very good still out front, and just looks like he's got the pace and the composure to handle these safety car situations.
Yeah, well, Noof had a pretty good safety car restart. Obviously, built up a gap on the main straight already, and that basically got him out of all that chaos that was going on behind him, and that's an important thing to do if you want to win the race. Just stay out of the chaos and out of the crashes, and that's the best way to do it. Get a safety car restart, build a gap, and then you're out of it basically, and then you know it's all under your control what happens to your car, and then you know, you can't blame anyone else for something, and it's the best way to do it. And Nuth once again has to build up a gap now.
Yeah, and you'll have to try and get a safety car restart. Right, hopefully we have a little bit less drama than what we had in the last safety car restart. But it's going to be interesting to see what happens. I reckon there's a few drivers are going to be looking to try and make a move here. And potentially Shane could be one of them, as he potentially might know that Rudy is a little bit vulnerable with some potential damage to his car.
Safety car coming in this lap once again. As we can see, Rudy is preparing to restart the race, and he's bunching up the field already. He probably would like some chaos once again. Not that much chaos that another safety car will be deployed, but probably a bit of damage, a bit of chaos that helps him get a bit of a gap to second place Rudy. But he's going very slowly, might be a good tactic, and Rudy is in 4th gear for the good traction. Nuth is weaving all over the place trying to get the tyres warmed up, and Rudy is very aggressive and right next to Nuth, but Nuth has made a good safety car restart, and there we go, we've got a side-by-side moment in between P2, and there goes Shane down the inside, then trying to snatch P2 away, and he gets the move stick past Rudy. He goes and into second place. Lattis has moved up a spot as well, and there's a bit of chaos in the background. We've got the Red Bull of Symbolics trying to go the Williams, sorry, trying to go side by side, and Kill is side by side with Trinity, and he seems to get the move done, and no, he hasn't, and he closes the gap, and that could cause a lot of chaos once again. And yeah, he just closed the line where he couldn't close it. They were side by side, and he just moved to the right hand side of the track. Tiramisu has dropped down positions as well, but yeah, he was still side by side and just closed the door on the Red Bull of Trinity, and there was nothing Trinity could have done to avoid that. And yeah, I think that was the Mercedes' own fault.
Yeah, so much to unpack from that restart. Firstly, what a fantastic move from Shane on Rudy down the inside. I wasn't sure he was going to get stopped in time. Super late on the brakes, did it superbly. I've got to say, from us saying that he was sort of struggling in these conditions, he's now staying pretty close to the race leader, who at this point, up to now, has been pretty untouchable in the lead.
Yeah, I mean, that straight line speed seems to be carrying him. He's just set the fastest 3rd sector of the entire race so far, so it looks like he's found his pace now. He's found his confidence on the acceleration around the corners, and that helps him quite a lot. But Nuth, obviously, he's been very composed so far in his lead, and he's trying to build up that gap, but he is just not able to do so just yet. but 6/10 should be enough to keep him ahead on the main straight.
Yeah, Simbalix had a difficult restart. He was fourth. He lost positions to both Philip and Latus. So not a good restart for the Williams driver, and he's got some ground to make up. Deevy's gained a couple of positions up to 7th, obviously helped by that contact between the TTG drivers of Trinity and I'm just going to go with Kill as well, because I can't really think of what else to call him. And what we've got further down looks like Tiramisu's past Martin. Don't think there's any contact there from what I could see, but changing position. And Shane just drifting away from Noof slightly around the second mark. Rudy's pace ever since that contact with Toxic Tomato kind of backs up what you said, really, in that he does have some side pod damage, because his pace was a lot better than this prior to the safety car.
Yeah, like the chat already confirmed it. It is side pod damage. So yeah, it's going to be difficult, but it was kind of his own fault. I mean, he overtook Toxic Tomato before the start-finish line, which you're absolutely not allowed to do so. You must not overtake the driver ahead of you before the start-finish line. That's a common known rule in Formula 1, and he didn't follow that rule, and that's what you get from it in the end. You're risking a crash, and he risked it, and, didn't even get a penalty. Now he's got side pod damage and maybe a post-race penalty with that.
I have to wait and see on what the stewards do. Of course, indeed, if Toxic Tomato does put it in the stewards, which I have to wait and see. There's a lot to unpack from that. It'll be interesting to see the different angles from it after the race, actually. Shane having a better lap this time around, as I say, about going board with him, and he has a massive oversteer moment. Although that's pretty commonplace for Shane at the moment. Back end of that car is still not complying with him, but he seems to be finding a way to drive around the problem that he's got. So potentially one move that could be unfolding is Simbalix on the back of Latus, and in fact DV as well is pretty close to the back of Simbalix. This is a sort of a bit of a queue of cars, I'd say, forming just behind Latus, and he could be the driver that's under threat.
Yeah, it looks like the drivers are struggling a bit on traction on the exit of the last corner in the banking, but it hasn't caught too many drivers out since the safety car restart just yet. But yeah, Simbalix, Latus and DV should be the 3 drivers we should mostly look out for. As I'm talking about that, Noah's setting up a move on Shender, and I think retakes his position into turn 3. Down the inside he goes, clean move. And yeah, Ty said from the POV of Simbalix it looked like Toxic Tomato spun and hit the right rear of Rudy. Yes, I can confirm that Toxic Tomato lost the rear end, but he just hit Rudy due to the fact that Rudy overtook him before the start finish line. So that was my point of view, but I'm not a steward, so the stewards have a lot to work out after the end of this race. I think there's going to be a lot going on in the incidents chat and a lot of footage being sent in after the end of this race.
Yeah, absolutely. They've got a busy few days in front of them, I suspect, particularly with around 7 other tiers in action tonight. There's going to be potentially a lot going on in to unpack. Simbalix still pretty close to Latus, but he just can't get a good enough exit to make a move down into Tarzan. Noah and Shender potentially going to be going at it again. Not quite. Shender's not quite close enough. Noah's ran wide, so that may present an opportunity to Shender. They're going to continue to go side by side up to turns 3 and 4.
And Philip and Simbalix are going at it, because Philip made a mistake that sent Latus up into P4, and now Simbalix up into P5. Don't know what exactly he did, but he definitely made a mistake, because he had a comfortable gap, and and he made another mistake. He's down to 7th.
What's happened to Philip? A disastrous half a lap, and he's off again. He's off again. Looks like he got caught in the curb this time around, and this is a lap of nightmares for Philip. While his teammates out in the race lead, Philip has dropped from 4th to 10th, could be 11th as well, as Noah goes around the outside, and it just looks like he can't get his tyres back into the window again, because one mistake has quickly become about 3 or 4 in the space of half a lap.
Yeah, and there goes Noah then into 10th. Now inside the points. He's got a 3-second time penalty for exceeding track limits though. And Shane is just not letting go of note that speaking about Shane, he's just set the fastest lap of the race. So Shane is absolutely on fire since this safety car restart. And he's found his pace, he's found his confidence and grip, and is now the biggest challenger of Nuth, which I didn't believe to be saying on lap 24 of this race. But he is the man that is the closest to Nuth that someone ever was in this race.
Yeah, but and like you, I never would have expected it to be Shane that was putting the fight up.
Oh, and Nuth spun! Nuth is around and he's lost his lead after leading all race long on lap 24. He loses his lead by spinning it through turn 7 it was, and now he's dropped down to 9th, and Shane is leading.
And I think both Red Bulls have just collided as well further down the field. Trinity and Toxic Tomato have come together, so that could be yet another one to unpack. But wow, you look about a lap and a half ago, it was 1st and 4th for the McLarens. It's now 9th and 12th. I don't think they could have had a much worse few laps if they wanted to. And that Noof's driven so well up to that point. That's his first mistake he's made all evening, and it's cost him dearly. And the leader's gone, and now all of a sudden, Shane is now the leader of a race, and he's got a wounded Rudy in second. So you've got to say right now, it's looking pretty good for Shane.
Yeah, Philip moves himself up into P11 with Koala diving into the pits. Same with Martin. So it looks like a bit of damage was done on that lap. Yep, front wing change for the Ferrari, and the same for the Williams.
Right, so, and it looks like Simbilic's still right in the back of Latus. Of course, Latus will drop behind Simbilic at the end, but he will probably look to get that penalty removed if he can, so that could easily be provisional, of course, and it could get changed after the race. And DV's found himself back into the top 5 now, so really out of nowhere, DV's all of a sudden in a very strong position here, particularly with his main championship rival throwing away what would have been a potential victory.
Yeah, by the way, I'm wondering who's got the fastest lap of the race so far? Shane!
Yep.
Shane will get away with 17 points as it stands. Absolutely insane.
Just got to clarify as well, actually. Latus, if he wants to get penalties removed, he'll have to get 2 penalties removed because he's got 10 seconds worth of penalties, from what I can see. So,
yeah, but Latus right now has got an even more busy time with Simbilic's getting closer and closer. Nude, tries to fight his way back with the fastest lap of the race being set by him just now, who takes away the extra point from Shane. But I don't know what happened. Maybe Nuth was just trying to push more and more because he realised he couldn't really get away from Shane. And maybe he just tried to push more than the car was able to do in these conditions, and he spun around. I didn't see the way he spun, but it was through turn 7, and that's a corner you'd easily overstep the mark in if you're pushing the car a bit over the limit. And it looks like Shane has put enough pressure on the McLaren to push him into a mistake. And gotta say, fair play to Shane so far, who's having a brilliant race, even though he didn't look confident at all on the first stint. Even before the safety car, it was not looking too great for him. I mean, his straight line speed was good, his position was solid, but that is absolutely insane seeing him in P1 right now.
Yeah, and you've got to give full credit to him. He, like you say, he's the first driver all race has actually been able to put some pressure on Noof, and this is the thing. Look at Noof's pace now. Now that he's almost on a recovery mission. He's the quickest driver out on track. He's right behind. Ironically, Shane's teammate Shender is the car he's right behind. So I'm interested to see what Noof tries to do here, because he's gonna be angry probably at himself more than anything else, and he's gonna try and fight back and see how many positions he can gain. And to be fair, there's about 3 cars just in front of him, but he could pass before the end of this race. But he's going to have to get creative, because there's not that many overtaking opportunities around here.
Yeah, well, we saw Perez was able to overtake a few guys, but obviously he had the help of DRS, which Nuth hasn't got at all. He's just got the slipstream, his car, and the wet conditions, and that doesn't make it any easier. He needs to rely on a mistake maybe from the car ahead. Got yellow flags. That is Koala spinning around. He was in penultimate last. Now he is last. That was close. Nuth is really on the edge of grip here and really on the limit, but I don't think he's got that much time left to actually fight. And I gotta say, fair play to Rudy as well, who is in second with side pod damage, and he's not letting go of Shane all too much either. If Shane makes a mistake, Rudy's gonna be there.
Yeah, fair play. Rudy's pace has actually in the last few laps really picked up. He's keeping pace with Shane. If anything, he's gaining a 10.42 on him. Maybe now that Shane's not chasing anybody, maybe he's just slightly gone off the boil in terms of his outright pace, but nevertheless, Rudy's doing a fantastic job. He's under no threat behind, which I've got to be honest, I'm a little bit surprised about. I thought he would have been under more threat from cars behind. Maybe Latus is helping him out a little bit in that respect. But yeah, nevertheless, Rudy still could win this race. All, like you say, it'll take one mistake from Shane, and Rudy's sort of guided his wounded car to an unlikely victory.
And another spin. Yeah, kill.
Out of the race. And that's safety car. Wow.
That throws another big spanner into the works, especially of Shane now, who is going to be the one that is going to be leading the field and controlling the pace before the restart. And I tell you what, that might help Nuth a bit more, because we saw the chaos that was unfolding after the safety car restarts, and that could be the best chance for Nuth to pick up a few more points. But it's incredible to see how it went from a nightmarish race for DV to him even extending his championship lead over Nuth. Nuth was leading the race, controlling it, and it looks like no one could stop him until lap 24, where he spun, and DV was basically in no man's land. But fair play to him, he's fought his way back even after his spin, and suddenly he finds himself inside the top 5 with maybe even more potential to come.
Well, keep an eye on Noah and Trinity. They've decided they're both outside the top 10 anyway, so they both decided to put on a fresh set of intermediates. I was going to say, I thought a few people outside the top 10 might take that gamble, and it's worth doing. They weren't in the points anyway, so might as well take a set of fresh intermediates. I mean, compared to a lot of the guys out there who've got 16 laps on their inters, that's a big difference. If Noah and Trinity could potentially get some points out of this race.
Absolutely, and well, we've got basically a couple of laps sprint left now. As soon as the safety car comes in, we won't have that many laps left, so it's basically all or nothing for many drivers. But it's looking like it's going to be an exciting finale if we take a look at the previous safety car restarts. But I gotta say, it's very stressful for a commentator to commentate over these safety car restarts, because so much is happening and going on at the same time.
Yeah, and we saw when Nuth, under both safety car restarts, he kind of left it to the last possible second to put the throttle down. Now we've got Shane, who's going to become the effective safety car. It'll be interesting to see if he takes the same approach, or maybe tries to catch out Rudy with a slightly earlier launch once the safety car comes in. It's in some interesting mind games going to be at play here, because you know, you almost anticipate what the guy at the front's going to do, but he may potentially do something a little bit different.
I reckon the safety car is going to be in at the end of the next lap, as yeah, Koala should be able to catch up. Gotta say, I'm very surprised we've actually still got 16 drivers left in this race, because with the amount of chaos we've had, that's quite a high number.
It's currently saying Shane's being controlled by an AI. There we go. Nice. I don't know if you maybe paused it or something. But yeah, I was going to say, I hope he hadn't lost connection or something. Then that would have been a problem. But now he's back in control of his car. DV's in a nice position, P5, and I feel like his teammate, I don't know if it was on purpose, but his teammate was sort of a few seconds away from him and just holding the next group of cars up. So whether deliberate or not, DV's got a nice sort of rear gunner behind him with his teammate, and he may be able to go on the offensive on the restart with that knowledge. And then you look at the two McLarens, 9th and 10th, like 10 laps ago you would not have guessed that the two McLaren drivers would be in those positions. It's it's very much a road to recovery now, particularly for Nuve, who we saw before the safety car came out was looking for any way past Schender.
Safety car in at the end of this lap, so we'll have 6 laps of hopefully green flag racing without any more incidents coming up for us, but we'll have to wait and see. Shane obviously restarting the race now for the first time. He has. Did you say both Alpines didn't score points yet?
Yep, Alpine have yet to score any points at the moment. They're set to change that with both drivers, which is quite something. Although, of course, remember, Schender does have that 5-second penalty to be added to his race time, so that could.
Does he still have those? Because it's not put in for me. It's not saying.
That's from the last race that Stu was handling.
Yeah. And Shane has gone, and Shane has made a brilliant restart, and it looks like if some guys are under pressure, it's going to be Rudy in second place, and maybe Laters ahead of Simbalix. Simbalix is getting close, same as DV. Schender's under pressure, and Enzo has made a brilliant move past 2 drivers at once. Jabraka is under pressure from the other Alpine, and Schender dives down the inside, goes a bit wide now, and there goes the McLaren of Nuve now around the outside in turn 3. Brilliant move from him, and he might be able to pick up another position from the Haas from Jabraka. We've got yellow flags in the background. That's a Ferrari spun, but it looks like Nuve has settled down to 8th for now.
Yeah, Noah looking to take advantage of those fresh intermediate tyres, and it's already gone wrong for him, sadly. Spun towards the back of the field. Shane already almost 2 seconds in the lead, and I'm on board with Nuve because I feel like he's very close to the back of Jabraka. Simbalix again trying to make a move on Latest, and then we've got Schender and Philip also battling just behind Nuve, so plenty of battles going on this restart.
Yeah, it looks like no move is done just yet at the second stage of this restart now, but it looks like if Shane doesn't make any more mistakes, he should have the win secured, but I wouldn't say that too early because we thought the same about Nuth. And look where he is now, in 8th place, trying to find his way back to the front of the grid, but he's very close now to the Haas of Jabraka. Obviously no DRS enabled, and there he goes down the inside into Tarzan, and he's on the inside. Can he get a better exit than the Haas? A bit of contact made on the outside. He pushes the Haas out wide, but now he's got the inside line for turn 2. In turn 3, it's going to turn into the outside for him in the banking. In real life, that will be a huge opportunity, but on this game, it just isn't. And that helps Jabraka staying ahead of him. Noah retires in the pit lane, and now Nuth might come under pressure from Schender behind, but he's not close enough.
Nuve looking for every way. Great battle between the pair, and they came to contact a few times, but it was never anything more than just sort of rubbing the side of each other's cars. It was nothing too untoward, I would have said. It was really good stuff, particularly in these conditions. Simbalix is still right behind Laters. You almost wonder if Laters just has got superb straight line speed, because as soon as they get to a straight, there's no way for Simbalix to force a move. No matter what he does with his ERS, I've been watching it, he's been trying to use it every opportunity he's got, but he just cannot force a move on Latest, despite the fact that it looks like he's quicker.
Yeah, it looks like he's quicker, but obviously around Zandvoort, and especially in the rain, it doesn't make the move that easy, but he's closer than ever now, I think. But still, it looks like just Laters has such a good straight line speed that he's able to stay ahead. Let's see if Nuth is able to pull up a move on Jabraka. No, he's further away than he was on the previous lap, and he has to stick for 8th for now. He's running out of time. 4 laps to go in this race, and he's down to 8th. Even though it looked like he's going to gain a lot of points on the championship leader, he's now losing a lot of ground on him in the championship, and that's obviously then not what you'd expect after you got pole position and led for 23 laps of the Grand Prix.
No, and Rudy, who was 4th in the championship, currently on course to score his 2nd podium of the season, that brings him right into contention as well. So really, DV and maybe Rudy will be the top 2 in the championship going to the next round. Nuve will be kicking himself where he is at the moment, and he can't seem at the moment to force a move past Jabraka either. He's all over the back of him. He's going to look. There's no way through there. He wants to try and set it up for the main straight if he can. But I mean, just look at this. Nearly every car is within a second of each other, apart from Shane, who's just absolutely legged it down the road. 3.6 seconds clear of Rudy, and to be honest with you now, he can just coast it home. There's no reason now to take any risks if we're in Shane's position.
Nuth is gaining, Nuth is gaining. He had a little look on the inside, but thought better of it. Probably the best decision was just a bit too far away. Slight loss of grip on the exit of turn 1. And into turn 3 we go. Yeah, he comes close, but just not at the right parts of the track. Because you can't pass anywhere around here. The track is just too tight with the fast corners. Nuth gets closer once again, but into turn 7 you don't want to try it. Does he try it? No, he won't. He's close now, but where does he want to go? He just can't find a way past. Maybe now into turn 9, and yes, Jabraka just turns in, and that ends in contact in between them. Shender's having a look around the outside. Can he get past both of them? No, he can't, and there's a bit of contact still in between the Haas and the McLaren, and the Haas gets tabbed by Shender, who's now looking for a move on Nuth as well. Can he gain 2 positions within 2 corners? No, he can't, but Nuth picks up 7th now. Finally, he's found his way past, and Jabraka just lost 3 positions within 2 corners.
Well, I can perfectly tell you what happened there. I was on board with Nuth through turn 8, and he simply, when he went for the move down the inside, late braking, he lost the rear end of the car as he was turning in, and that just sent him in to the Haas of Jabraka, and that's really how that all ensued. It was a fair enough move, as I see a Red Bull going very late on the brakes, nearly hitting the back of Jabraka, who's dropped 10th as a result of that. He won't be too happy, but it was a fair enough move from Nuth, but he lost the rear end of a car, which is what sent him into the Haas. It was one of those, really, where perhaps he just was a little bit too late on the brakes.
We've got a 4-car train as well. A 5-car train, actually. In between P2 and P6. Everyone's within around half a tenth of the car ahead, but no one's really able to make a move. Penultimate lap of this race now. If someone's making a move up there, I think it's going to be DV or Simbalix. But obviously Simbalix runs at high risk if he tries to get past Laters. He's right under pressure from DV if he can't make it stick. So he has to consider if it's worth the risk of trying to pass the Mercedes ahead of him. But right now it just looks like he can't find a way past, as Shane is starting the final lap of this race now. And he's got the fastest lap as well. Simbalix too far away now. Let's see if DV is able to make a move. No, he's not. Nuth sets the new fastest lap of the race. And yeah, it looks like there's not going to be a move made just yet. And those guys are running out of corners now, because final lap, and you don't want to risk too much. Otherwise, you're going to end in the wall rather than with a couple of points. But I think DV wouldn't be too sad finishing in P5 at the end of the race, considering what this race was like for the first 10 laps for him.
Yeah, you almost wonder if DV, thinking of a championship and thinking about how his race has gone in general, he probably doesn't really want to risk too much of a stage. He knows as well that Nuth is behind him, although he's quickly gaining on this group of cars, although it might be too little too late, unfortunately for Nuth. Is there going to be any attempts at a move on this final lap? Doesn't look like anyone's really close enough. Rudy's actually pulled away from latest a little bit, and it's looking very good here. For talks about Alpine being pointless coming into this one. Well, Shane has not only solved that problem, it looks like he's going to take the win as well.
Yeah, around the final corner he comes in after 36 laps. He is leading this race and taking 16 points with him as he crosses the line, ahead of Rudy, who takes second, ahead of Latest, Simbalix and DV. Latest is dropping down due to his penalty. We'll see if that is going to be removed. But I think the man who is going to be the most disappointed is Nuth, who stands in 6th at the end of the timing screens, but he has crossed the line in 7th, so we'll see how many points he'll get. But I think the happiest man is going to be our race winner. And I absolutely did not think he was going to be the man on top after 36 laps. And my goodness, that was a hell of a race. And that was absolutely brilliant and a well-deserved win in the end, after he's put the pressure on Nuth, forced him into a mistake more or less, and Nuth, after leading 23 laps of this race, spinning and throwing his victory away. It's gotta hurt for him, but he's gotta have to stand up again and then fight back for the next round. But here you have your final results, unofficial results I should say. with Shane taking the win from P9 on the grid. Amazing drive. Looks like we've got a full Dutch podium at the Dutch Grand Prix. We've got Rudy in second then, but we'll look at that incident. The stewards will look at that incident at the first safety car restart. Simbalix takes a P3. DB then a very happy man in P4, I reckon. Enzo takes P5. A pretty quiet race for him. Didn't see much of him, but in the end he takes P5. Nuth then finishes in 6th. Shender in 7th with his time penalty. Then Philip in P8. Jabraka takes P9, and Toxic Tomato picks up the final point of this race. And that was one brilliant race, I tell you, and it was a lot of fun commentating over this one.
Yeah, and a quick note, I've just done some quick maths to work it out. Joy one side of the Alpine garage, sadly no Joy at the other. With Shender's 5-second penalty, he will drop outside of the points, and that will give Koala, assuming Latest doesn't have his penalties removed, that will give Koala a point after making 4 stops, which is just proof that he should never give up. Koala had an eventful night, but he still will have a point to show for it thanks to Shender's penalty. But the night belongs to Shane, and you know, I try to be sometimes unpredictable with who I give driver of the day to, but it's just got to be Shane, hasn't it?
Yeah, absolutely brilliant drive, faultless drive as well. Even though he looked like he wasn't that confident at the start of the race, especially on the exits of corners, but he absolutely managed to fight back. Brilliant moves into Tarzan at the restarts, and he took P2 with a great move on Rudy. And in the end, he was the only driver to actually come close to Nuth at some point, and that maybe was enough to send Nuth into a bit of pressure and into a mistake. And in the end, he wins the race with a faultless drive. So very, very deserved. But it was a lot of fun today commentating, and I am hoping for another couple of good races to the end of this season. That was it for tonight, ladies and gentlemen. Jake, thank you for joining me here tonight. It was an awesome first race of this game for me, and I'm hoping we'll be there for another couple of great races to the end of the season.
Yeah, it should be absolutely fantastic, and obviously we've kind of been syncing up with a real life calendar in the last few weeks. We had Spa last week, obviously much better racing on the game than what we've got in real life, and we've had Zandvoort this week, which of course means next week we're heading to the Temple of Speed at Monza, so that should be a lot of fun. And you know, maybe a lack of overtaking opportunities here as Zandvoort. Definitely not the case when we get to Monza.
Yeah, make sure to tune in next week, Monday, 7 PM UK time, when we're back for round 5 then. The music is absolutely too loud. I'll need to fix that for next week. But yeah, that was it for tonight. Thank you everyone for tuning in into this brilliant race. Was a pleasure. Yeah, I've got nothing more to say. Anything to add, Jake?
Yeah, just quickly as well, if you want to check out the F1 races currently being live streamed now with Luke and Alamonda, so be sure to check that out. Currently got 225 live viewers, so if you can go along and add to that, that would be fantastic.
With that being said, we are done for tonight. I hope to see you guys once again next week, and until then, goodbye and take care.